Pussy Power 2023.
Yay.
Na tuko hapa na wasupa. Hata mpigi shangu na nderemo. I'm quite excited. My name is Rachel Mwikali. Mimi ndo convener na co-founder Coalition for Grassroots Human Defender na Pussy Power Movement. Na tuko hapa kwa kurecord podcast yetu as usual, done together with Swaiba Podcast, which I'm happy today I'm hosting the boss of Swaiba. And the theme for this year festival ni Feminists are here to stay. Feminists ni Sisi Tuko. Both combination ya Kizungu na Kiswahili na Sheng for our people. And being that we have been experiencing rise ya anti-gender, anti-choice movement, na essence yetu ya kuweza kwa hii festival during 16 days of activism inakuwa ya kubring power yetu pamoja na kustrategize, na tumekuwa na different activities where we are able to unpack different concepts. Na objective ya kwanza ilikuwa kuexamine the appropriation of feminist concepts, na tunaenda kuzungumzia hapa the movement imekuwa co-opted na non-feminists, watu na claim ni activists na feminists, but iko na consequences kwa vile tuna organize, na tunaona pia wanapata resources na si feminist, but imaanisha tuendelee kuorganize. And then tuko na hiyo kuanalyze the dilution of gender discourses, where we are seeing pia rising of anti-gender, anti-choice movement. We have seen it in Kenya na pia after the ruling in Supreme Court, and also in solidarity with the LGBTQ movement and sexual reproductive health and rights movement. The other part tunaenda ku-explore ni reinterpretation of for political purposes. Watu wakitumia hizi discourses zinaleta shida gani na effect gani kwa organizing. Pia highlights of feminist resistance and adoption through different activities tumemanage kufanya, na pia funding of feminist work in Kenya. Realities ziko aje? Tunaambiwa pesa ziko, tuzioni zifiki, zingine zinafika, ama wenye wako nazo ziko aje, ziko na condition na zina condition. Na through that tumefanya different activities pia during International World AIDS, Women Human Rights Defenders, and other activities that have been ongoing, and the main party of Pussy Power Festival in Mathare, together also with academia, artists, activists, community leaders, allies and supporters and community members. So to my panel, super amazing. Na mnakaa vizuri, mmeogaoga, mmejaribu. Tunasemanga watu wanatuongeleleanga, na ningependa mjintroduce. Wewe ni nani? Unafanya nini? Na kazi yako ni gani? Na expert yako ni gani? Sisi ni experts.
Yes, an expert.
Nazana Njoki huko.
Okay, so mimi naitwa Njoki Gashanja. I am the coordinator Githurai Social Justice Center. I'm identify kama a political and social justice activist, but I'm also soon to be lawyer.
Yes, tutashere.
Yes.
Tunaona zile mawazo mshaino.
Yes. Yeah, and I am happy to be here to have this conversation. Tumekuwa tukisema hatuna platforms, but si ndio hizi tunazimake. Na ni Sisi Tuko. So tutakuwa na hiyo conversation.
Asante. Makofi. Jacinta?
Okay, kwa majina naitwa Jacinta Gunja. I'm a feminist activist, but professionally I'm a finance officer in CGHRD Kenya. Happy to be here.
Yako imekuwa short and sweet, eh?
Short and sweet.
Utaki bombo na nderemo. To a very own, and congratulations.
Asante sana.
Ama niseme ni kwa nini before you introduce?
Unaweza sema
sasa tuko na pia sisi tumesoma. Tuko na on development and gender experts.
Yes.
Mundia mwenyewe.
Hizi vitu ni muhimu. So venye mmesikia naitwa Nyambura Mundia. Mimi ni host wa Swaiba Podcast, and it's always a pleasure to host Pussy Power. Alafu niko na degree ya theology, so I also work with the religious leaders around specific issues, especially around faith, feminism and freedom. And it's really, really nice to be here.
Asante. Na mila na kuhost.
I'm
usually the one seated on the other side. Today you're feeling the heat.
Man, it is hot in here, but we can do this. Na hema kiasi.
Puta hema. So ningependa at least kwanza na one of you, ama mkitaka kuchoose njia. Tumeona kama hii mwaka kulikuwa na hiyo ruling ya kwa lao National Gay and Lesbian Human Rights Commission kwa registered kama NGO. Tumeona kumekuwa na Family Protection Bill yenye introduced na Kaluma, which is anti the work we do na net affect. but tumekuwa tukiona pia currently in Kenya hata watu wanaona kitu nyorosha wenye kutupatia backlash. Sasa hiyo umekuwa feminist kutushinda. What's your experience na hizi narrative na mnaona ina affectaje organizing zetu?
For me, narrative especially hiyo ya kuregister the gay board, watu walikuwa na the truth because the anti-gender walifika ground na story ingine, because watu wengi especially the backlash yenye tuko tunapata mtaani ni ile wanasema ati tunaingiza watoto kuwa magays na malesbian, but the real information was not that. It was just the registration. But wale anti-gay movements wakapata chance ya kukuja kuattack wakisema we are trying kuweka watoiwa kwa magays na malesbian, but in real sense there are people who are like that na wako, despite watu wanajifanya waoni, even our own kids, even in our own families they are gays and lesbian, but unapata hata wenye wanaipiga kabisa kwa familia zao, they know there are people like that. So hapo ndio mali walipata mnyorosho ya mosha moja, na hapo ndio unaona ilikuja ikakuwa na story mingi because of the narrative. They changed the narrative. Yeah.
Njoki?
Well, I think his story, first of all, sai kama Kenya, we're living in very sitasema unprecedented, but ni kama tunarudi nyuma from the milestones that we make, especially in the human rights space and our democracy. Because every single time we are trying to have a conversation about, whether it's, gays and lesbianism, people will say that is an African. That is not in our culture. Sasa blanda ikakuwa, sasa pia tumeingiza regime ingine, a lot of Christian fundamentalism. And ideally, we're also living in a country where there's a lot of, religion, imposition of religion on the lives of people. And ule msi unadozi nae, vitu unafanya huko hivyo kwa bedroom yako really, azifai kuinterfere na rights zangu kama a human being. But we are getting to a place where you will find the narratives or arguments that people will take. For example, that family bill is like, we're trying to protect the families that we have. We are trying to protect, these people don't even want us to, give birth to children. Let's just look at our context at this particular point politically. Even the families that we're having right now. So the government is really protecting and providing for the families that we have, so that we can say that this is such a caring family, such a caring government that is so pro-family. So now they're trying to protect, And it's also, whose interest are you serving? Because sometimes these conversations follow the money, follow the resources. So who's funding the anti-gay lesbianism? Who's funding the gay lesbianism conversation, Whose interest are we really serving? And is it our own realities and our context that we're really talking about? Are we being genuine when we are going to the streets saying, me I'm pro this, me I'm anti this, ama tu ni do unafuata? Leo wewe ni ule mse, you don't believe in, in gayism, in lesbianism, but kesho, mse akufikia bei. Now you have appropriated that whole struggle and it has become your struggle, So I think those are the questions that we also really need to keep asking ourselves, even as we're having these conversations. Get to a place where we're having these conversations from a place of genuine, from being genuine. Ni interest nani tunaserve.
So before nikuja kwa Mondia, napenda wana Jacinta meleta hii idea, tunaona watu wanasema ni anti, because it's not about just being gay or lesbian or access, but it's about humanity and human rights for all. In your own lived experience na organizing mnafanya kwa ground, mwana kuna wale watu walikuwa anti, walikuwa either anti wanajifanya pro, ama walikuwa nasema ni human rights defender, but sasa hao ndio anti. Have you had that experience of some of your activist comrades or colleague wenye wana tuchapa sasa because of our position of being inclusive on human rights? I don't want us to put it's a discussion when you give in lesbian, but about humanity of an individual. Mmeona hizo cases?
Actually hizo cases zimekuwa, especially before ulikuwa unapata when it comes to gender, human rights wengine wana choose rights za kupigania. Unapata they don't go for the radical ones. Wanaenda kwa kitu kama maji, chakula, barabara. But when it comes to human rights, wanasema hiyo barabara hatuendi. Church yetu I believe hivyo. So unapata saa hii, for me I feel they are not genuine. They are going for the money. But when walikuwa wanaifanya before, walikuwa wanafanya out of passion, out of being human rights for all. Because human rights ni universal, inanga ifs na buts anywhere. It's either you are in or out. But wakati imekuja ni story ya funding, hata ukiangalia the way funding ina happen, unapata wale watu wako na system na structures ndio wanapewa pesa. Wewe mwenye umekuwa kufanya hiyo kazi out of passion because you don't have the system and the structure, hauwezi pata hiyo funding. So unapata watu, I think iko venye wanagejigi. Unapata sahi yenye nashika ni feminism. Kila mtu anaruka hiyo side. Unapata people who have been doing that for the longest time because hawana systems and structure. Sometimes they don't look how watu wamekuwa kifanyaje because unapata wakati you are doing the human rights because of passion, do ikuangi kwa akili yako. But when it comes kwa story ya do, unapata maybe amuna pesa yenu ijafika kama 3,000,000 so hatuwezi wapea do. Na unapata baadaye si hatujakuwa na hiyo do, ijafika hiyo do ndio tuweze kupatiwa maybe na hiyo now. Na unapata wako na system imesimama vizuri sana. Structure imesimama, wako na everything. So hao ndio wanapatiwa hiyo do. Na haifiki watu wenye wanafanya job kwa ground. Si tunatumiwa kama mobilizers wakati wanataka meetings, mtuitie watu wakati wanataka kufanya interviews. That's why mimi iko interviews mimi nakataa. Juu kwa nini unitumie saa hii, you can't give me hiyo money niende kudeal nao kwa ground, kumobilize watu, kuwapia the correct information. For me, I feel everybody is going that way right now because of the money.
And how does it, because tuzikata pia do ni important, na nakuja wako Njoki na Shosho pia. Tuzikata, Shosho nitangamundia Shosho, because akona wisdom, Tuzikata do ni muhimu in terms of our own organizing, but in affect aje organizing ya grassroots feminist wakati mtu alikuwa anti-feminist, akona system na structure, but anapata hiyo do na wewe upati do uko Mathare. In affect aje organizing yako na young feminist?
Obviously it affect juu one already yako na resources. So akifanya hiyo kazi kwanza atachukua wale watu umekuwa ukifanya nao job because you don't have the resources, ataenda nao. Tu mimi nafiligi they are the moles. They are there because of the money. So information yote yenye mtakuwa mnaongelea hapo watakuwa napeleka kwa the other side, the anti side, because yuko hapo because ana believe for the cause. Yako hapo because of them. Ikiisha anarudi kama alikuwa kwa maji, anarudi kwa maji yake. So automatically itabidi uchukulie mali aliacha, which will not be easier because maybe amesha introduce do kwa watu, utapea watu pesa. So automatically itakuwa ngumu kushinda venye ilikuwa before.
Asante Jacinta. Njoki, experience yako.
Umeuliza maswali mbili heavy tumepatana, so nilikuwa nikistruggle nayo. So but to your first question, nilikuwa nauliza wasi wako kwa space, lakini ikikuja ni because I mean kwa hii space yenye tuko wasi wako wanakuanga very selective, on mtu anajiita human rights defender, but ikifika ni rights zingine unacheki ameanza kuwa na tashwishi, you know. Especially tukio kwa hizi forums zenye tunaendanga, and I do a lot of trainings. So utapata we want to talk about everything else. We want to talk about, you know, social justice issues. Mimi nitakuwa very passionate about sijui tuna maji, sijui extrajudicial killings. Alafu tuende tu kidogo, we're talking about extrajudicial killings, but now we're talking about someone who's maybe gender non-conforming or was gay or was lesbian, and that is where we draw the line. Unaona, sema okay, sisi ni my human rights defenders, lakini cheki, unajua cheki, au ni mashoga. Hii pia inatu complicate ya issues, unanipata? So uko kwa forum na human rights defenders, but hata hiyo solidarity mseka like when, you know, the government is clamping down on these people, unaanza kuanza kufikiria about sexual orientation yake. When did this person stop being a human being? Because ideally when you say you're a human right defender, then this person still remains a human being before they are anything else, you know. So why are you being selective about when to give this human being solidarity? You know, ni saile wewe inakubenefit na saile haikubenefit wewe hauko hapo. So inakwanga really really annoying kama ni wase wako huko nje, people who don't even identify as human rights defenders having these conversations, hiyo inaweza kuwa a bit justifiable. But people who are in our spaces that are supposed to be our safe spaces, alafu kwa space yenye hao wase wanafaa kuwa wana feel safe, bado wana feel that same rejection, I don't think it's fair, you know. So it is something that is very real and it is happening in our spaces, and I think it's something that we need to combat. But to also come to the question that you were asking about people, leo alikuwa very, you know, ako anti-feminist, and then kesho unamchekie ndio ako frontline, I'm a feminist, nini, especially the men in this circle, in this space. Yani ukweli tu unajua umse ni mrazi, umse akienda home yu tandika bibi yake proper kama drum, unacheki yeye ndio anatumia madam left right and center kwa space, yeye ndio ana hold. But because do sasa zimeanza kukam nini side ya feminism, umse sasa ndio amekuwa the preacher, mse yeye ndio anatry kuconvert wase kwa space, mimi ni mse girl power, mimi, you know, feminism. And then but then they also delegitimize what we do every single day, because our say, because wako na structures, because wanajua wase wako kwa hizo ma spaces, so wanajua ile doors na come wanaji position, hiyo do ina come, sisi wenye tunafanya the legit work atupati hiyo kazi, you know, au wanapata hizo resources, and then after wamesha appropriate wanaanza kudilute the struggle and the narrative. So because when you're talking about feminism, it's very political, you know, but now because they also don't want radical politics, they don't want things that are hard hitting, wanaanza kudilute. So utapata they'll say, sisi in my feminist, what do? We go and distribute sanitary towels, they call it dignity packs, alafu wameka malebo zao, you know, like you call it dignity pack, you parade women hapo sijui grao, you're giving them sanitary towels, sijui sabuni, tissue, iko na either logo yenyu ama picha yenyu, and then they will sign forms and complete with their IDs, and then you want them to pose for photos. How is that giving these people dignity? But any person who does not understand what girl empowerment means, what feminism means, will always go hizo nini zenye zina to indignify more in the spaces. Yeah.
Asante. Mko na points.
Sote
ni experts, right?
Yeah.
Sote tukija pia kwa expert mwingine hapa tumetanga shusho. Lakini ni jina yangu peke yake muita. So Mundia, from your experience and also hosting a lot of work on faith, feminism na freedom, na pia wewe mwenyewe kukua kama gender and development expert, have you been seeing some of these trends that we're talking about from where you sit and the work you do with also organization?
I would say, Rachel, this is why we founded Swaiba specifically, because as we started, tulikuwa tuna work in work rights. Alafu tukaona the language we are using, because we are about transforming power, right? We are about challenging power in terms of norms as they are, whether in the offices or how money is conceived. And simply because we called ourselves a feminist collective, ilikuwa inaka, you know, corporates are not merging with us just for the language, right? Because most of the language that is being used around gender justice imekuwa co-opted, as we say, which is everything about having women in the front without power, or gender non-conforming people in the front, inclusivity. Si saizi kumekuwa na hii diversity, inclusion, and equity. And while I respect my friends, and I at some point I'm part of the conversations, it's that easy conversations, they do not require us to examine power. They don't require us to examine colonial legacies. It means that, one, African women or LGBTQ plus women of color will be at the bottom, and everyone else at the top. But it's also how media and our politicians or other experts are used to actually dilute the struggle. Meaning, words kama feminism are being thrown right and left, right? But no one is really doing the work. And one of the things is, I think, to think about is, we think we tend to think that this has just happened. But it's imepangwa, right? So by the time, because if you look at the feminist movement, whether in Africa or especially in what people would like to call global south, when Mothoni says it's actually the global majority, we were doing so well in terms of awareness of our rights, but also the human rights defender movements were getting stronger. And what we don't realize is by the time we were getting to apex, the powers that be, which is, capitalism, white supremacy, patriarchy, had to get us somewhere. And so pole wamekuwa waki-opt language yetu. But it's also because the resources are made to be scarce, our solidarity is almost broken. Because we're made to scaffold for very little resources. Meaning, at some point, our struggle is reduced to, survival. And any group, however strong you are, every time you're made to survive or scramble for small resources, I mean, we become, it's divide and rule, right? It's divide and conquer. And so I think, especially for countries like Kenya that call themselves Christian, it's also the co-option of Christian dogma, which is supposed to be about justice, which is supposed to be, I mean, if you look at the life of Christ, he was more an activist than anything else, He was more political. I keep saying his death was more political than religious, right? It's because he didn't fit. It's because he didn't eat with the people who wanted him to do the things they wanted him or organize a religion that he ended up dead. But what we realize is that radical evangelism, radical fundamentalism, fundamental Christianity has been co-opted to look like a family is father, mother, and children, when we know that's a colonial concept of family, which is very administrative, right? It's about resources, it's about making sure there's enough labor, it's about control, but we retain that we are looking out for our families, right? Like we do not have LGBTQ plus siblings, like we don't have, because even away from identity and sexuality, it's how we treat people with disability. It's how we treat people with mental disability, right? So for me, it's that religion and faith, specifically Christian faith, has been used and appropriated to take power from people. And for me, that is the essence of diluting or co-opting struggles and struggles that we should actually be empowering. So it's a bit disappointing, but I think we are not asleep. And this is why this conversation is important. And I truly hope that we as a people stop taking up lazy slogans or rhetoric. Because kuna vitu tunasemanga, I'm like, umekaa chini ukajisikiza, ama umekaa chini ukaexamine hiyo kitu. Because truly, if we just stay, and I know media plays a very vital role in making sure that we are busy, we're not looking into things. But I wish we just stayed and examined, especially the Christian rhetoric that is around this country now.
Thank you so much. Inani bring back na mkiongea around the conversation of family. And I know it's another debate. And one of the things nimekuwa tukizungumza hata na wengine wenyu kwa spaces and what also has Pusipa Western is that we acknowledge first our families, including my family, is very complicated. Kabisa. And some of us, familia yetu ni mabeshte zetu ama comrades wetu. We are very close. Like our comrades, our neighbors, they know us more than even our blood families. So maybe ningetaka kuuliza, cause hata na hii family protection bill inakuja, ina criminalize single mothers. And then the way Mundio umesema, most of our families define is from a colonial perspective, power and resources and patriarchy. So according to you, what does family mean to you? So that also we have our own narrative, because the narrative that we are being given is not a narrative based on our lived realities. Joki, family ni nini kwako?
Family ni mtoi wangu kwenda chuo kufanya exam, anaulizwa who's the head of the family. Anaandika reality yake, mother. And then mwalimu anampatia a wrong mark. And mtoi anakuja home, anazusha. Anasema, mom, nilikuwa na 98, but nilikuwa nafaa kuwa na 100%. Na the reason why nilipata 98 is because niliandika that the head of my family is mom, and mwalimu aka disagree, akanipatia wrong. So mimi kwenda kuzusha until my toi gets 100%, because you know what, family for my children is mtoi anajua family ni brother yake na mama yake. Hiyo ndio reality yake. Family for me is my 2 boys, and of course now the extended, that is my dad, my mom, who have had to play a role. Now my dad would come in as a dad figure, but then pia kuna hiyo gap ya generations. So my kid who's 15 cannot relate with my dad who's 85. So nime have pia ku adapt friends and comrades from this space to also fill in for this gap. So like you say, family sio kitu ati definition moja ya mother, father, children. Family is what we make for ourselves, because some of us didn't even have functional families when we were growing up. So anytime anyone mentioned family, we would be very confused, because what we have back at home does not feel like what we are taught family should be. And now you're growing up and you have to define for yourself what family is. So family is really where you feel safe. Family is where your identity is accepted and wasetu wako fiti na who you are. Family is where you can be whoever you want to be, and nobody is having issues about that.
Thank you. Jacinta? Family.
Okay, for me, what is family? Family ni wale wasi wana come through. That's family. Because mina jonga family stand na watu wake. Na unapata kwa wase wengi, family ndio nakufinyilia, wenye unaita familia yako nakufinyilia kushinda watu wana come through. For me na feel sisi tume come from blended family. Imeblendiwa, cocktail iko hapo ni ya kimataifa. So unapata the moment hiyo story ya mtoto anaandika mtoto ulizalia kwenu, yeye anajuaga yeye mother ndio kusema, akiandika mother na for me na feel family nafaa iandiko kulingana na venye African sisi wenyewe tuko tuna believe. Juu sisi ukiangalia the African context, kila mtu ni family. Unajipata uko na familia kubwa because people come through. That's what we call family. But history ya mama, baba, watoto, sai tuko na blended families, sai tuko na single headed families, sai tuko na child headed families. Because sai ukiangalia hakuna kitu inaitwa marriage sai. Na future hakutakuwa na hiyo institution, itakuwa imeisha. Because it doesn't stand. Unapata mama ndiye anadu kila kitu. Watu hiyo wanaona. Despite watu usemanga watoto waoni. Imagine watu hiyo wanaanga wanachezanga tu chini wanaona, madhangu ndo uliparent. Hata kama mwanaume kwa nyumba hakuna siku hata ushaipata to an extent mtu anaambiwa ndelete mzazi analitaka tu mama yake. Always analetaga mama yake. Hakuna siku huo mzae ataonekana na si ati yuko tu, but una expect huyo mtoi ataandikaje babake ndio head of the family, hata waiandika. Na unapata hapo ndio criticism zina happen. Me there was a time mtoi wangu alipatiwa expulsion letter. Na unajua letter ilidaishaje? Endo kamna buda. Yaani wamechoka kuniona, waendo kamna bude. Nijerudi shule, mtoi wangu ako home. Cause mimi nilifilai. Nda utatumaje mtu understand mtu yeye ni nini anapitia through? Ataenda shule achome zaidi ndio ikuwe worse. Me had to let it go. Mpaka sahi yako nyumbani, sahi ni shule ingine. Me I felt so bad. Na all along niko nawambiaga huyu hana baba, na wasiki wako leta baba yake. Nilete nani? I can't carry my own dad kwenda kumuongelea. Mpaka wale expulsion tena ilikuwa very specific. Si mimi nikam please akuje na baba yake ndio tuongee. Me I felt like wache ikae tutafuta shule ingine. So unapata hapo inakuwa between a rock and a hard place. Na most of shule mob hivyo ndio ziudu. Wakishaona ngoe mama umekuja sana na wewe ni kichwa ngumu, next unasikia enda ulete baba yako, una expect mtu yeye akwambie. But they don't understand that imekuanga ni issue, imekuanga ikipitia especially wale watoto wako single headed wenye ulizalia kwenu, na pia blended family. Si kila mtu anafit kwa hiyo blended, especially wale watoi unakuja nao kwa marriage nyingine. Walai hakuna venye watapewa 100%. It never comes to 100. Automatically itakuwa 25 20. Au wenye umezalia kwa hiyo marriage ndio watapewa 100%. Una expect huyu adu nothing.
Mwingine nakuletea swali lingine ngumu. Najisinda amenikumbusha mahali pia mimi ni from a blended family na nimekula ngumu around the exclusion that education system in a play. One, in terms of how they put the narrative on books about family. Because I've been trying to interrogate even the CRE books that currently we have. It's important, you know, where anti-gender, anti-choice are investing on narratives. So from your own point of view as an academician, working in, as a gender expert in development, how does education affect even how we see family? That's one. Secondly, from a perspective that you want to talk about the diversity, equity, and inclusion, inclusive of people also don't identify as heterosexual. Family ni father, mother, and kids. Well, we know also there are families that is 2 lesbian women or 2 gay men, or even people want to do adoption, but they can't get kids because they're told una buana.
That's true.
Una
I mean, a lot of my friends are there.
tunalazimishwa. How does it affect organizing around gender justice work?
Hey, Rachel. One, I keep saying, I forget the person, but there's someone who said that you can't legalize love. You can legalize other things, but you can't legalize love, right? And that is across board, whether it's children, whether it's same-sex lovers, however it is, you can't legalize love. But we keep seeing attempts of people doing that. Secondly, on the family, Musemaje, as Africans, we are so hypocritical, because before I come to your question, is if we just looked at our heads of states as Africans and the type of families they have, right, without mentioning names. I mean, without mentioning names, you know, but they always go back to, but we are Africans, right? That time they're asked, hey, what is this? They say, but we are Africans, right? So, which to say, we're very double standard, which tells me this thing is not about our value system. It's not about being right or wrong. It's actually about control, right? And so to answer your question about education and education, one is that if this conversation is about control, we must be forced to think about a certain way. And where is the best part to get us? Schools. Because, I mean, I know I'm minimizing this. It's monkey see, monkey do, right? So if you get a child, because socialization is a very powerful tool. So if you get a child at whatever young age, one, you must let the girl or the child or who comes from a single female-headed home to feel out of place, right? Which means you're also exposing them to bully, which is supposed to be you're supposed to be dissuaded. It's almost a punishment, a social punishment, so that single mothers are put away and are not the ideal woman, right? Because we must retain the society as it is, because when we are homogeneous, it's easy to control us. But women have, you know, I mean, the feminist movement has empowered women and LGBTQ plus people to know that, well, there's technology that can offer women to get children, however, right? Women are getting children, and instead of staying, if you're not kamawa utoshiunga, you know, there's no point of having a man nominally, right? And I wish, well, I want to hear that for the people who believe that we must remain the same. It's that our lived realities say differently. So I don't know why we are working against something we actually have. And this is why, I think, for the reasons why it's also very hard for women from middle class, the middle class women to come out when they are violated, where there is what is it called, intimate partner violence, because they were promised that so long as you were in a, you know, heterosexual relationship, you are safe, and then they realize they're not. And so it comes with shame because you went to school, you were educated, you have a degree, but nothing, you're not free from the violence that you were told you be, whether it's economically or physical. So I think for me, it's that the model we're being sold to is not working, and we can see it over and again. And I wish we just had a moment to examine ourselves, but also, truly, I think for me, I keep saying Pussy Power movement for me, Pussy Power Festival is important for me because it allows us to say things barely. Vile ziko, hakuna kurusharusha majina. There are no complex words. There is no, you know, a lot of Englishes. It's things as they are, right? And for even women from, as we call them, our bougie feminists, I have seen how liberating that is. Because for once, you're able to embrace your reality and perhaps be able to move away from it. But I say this with authority as someone who belongs to religious circles is unless you're really in a progressive space, which is few, because also we see how progressive people have been pushed out. I think, and I'm seeing it happen in, bougie corners. Women are starting to question what the religious rhetoric is doing, especially around the choices of who you marry, how many children you get, and if you're struggling with fertility, how far you can go in terms of praying other than ask for, assisted technology. So I think for me, is that I'm encouraged because no matter the work that feminists have done is liberating even the women who have refused to take their hands. Like the women who will be caught dead before they say they're feminists actually are stretching their hands to use the very rights the feminists have fought for in terms of bettering their lives, or even for mobility or just agency as human beings, And for me, every time I see that, I smile and say, yet you demonize feminists. Yet you will call us names, not realizing that the very thing you're talking about in terms of your support group was fought for by women you will not sit together. And it's that hypocrisy that for me, whether it's in schools or in churches, it's very diabolical. Hiyo ni jina kubwa. I don't know what to do. I don't know how we refuse to see it. I think for me, it's that type of hypocrisy for me beats me all the time.
Mnaongea hapo mpaka nasikia kama tuendelee. Unaweza ongezea Jacinta.
Okay, for me na feel hiyo concept ya family ndio inafanya GBV, femicide, neglect za watoi zinazidi. Because una imagine all along uliambiwaga family ni father, mother and kids. Hapo mali huko kuna umana. Alafu in African culture tuko na ile mentality hii, ukisha ondoka hakuna sani yako, imeisha, wewe you are done. Venye mademu tukigrow naambiwaga wewe utaolewa, ukuwe na bwana, ukuwe na watoto na boma yako. Na imagine sasa umefika hapo, hakuna boma, hakuna bwana, hakuna everything. So unapata kurudi nyuma, it's a no-go zone. That's why many women wanadai kwa relationships, they kill in the relationship because you don't have anywhere to go. All along ukigrow you believe family ni baba, mama na watoto. Umepata mwanaume, yes, mko na watoto, but it's not working. Unapata suicide ziko juu, unapata pia mada, neglect, unakasirika, unamwacha nijimade na watoi wangu because there is no option of going anywhere. So I think hizi vitu tumegrow tukiambiwa, ni high time pia tuanze watu wetu wenye pia tunaambia you have the choice of to choose where you want to go. Yes.
Unajua umenikumbusha kitu Jacinta na Mundia na pia Njoki. Na nilikuwa nimeandika hapa even around femicide. I don't know if you're aware, this week kumekuwa na ruling ya kesi ya Ivy. Mwenye aliuliwa ule student wa University. Na najua all of us have been very key in terms of fighting femicide in Kenya. And if you ask me, one of the practical example of co-option, you all know how we started Justice for Sharon and then femicide in Kenya, but it came and being co-opted by NGO. Politicians were also talking about the rights of women who had died, who have been killed. This, even removing the language of homicide, femicide, and saying they were killed because they were women. They were killed also, let's say, because they were lesbian women. But NGO inakuja na narrative ingine problematic. I don't know if you still remember now, it was also disappointing on us, even watering the whole cause here, femicide in Kenya. I don't know how you feel when you see people who have big budgets, people who think they have access to power, co-opting what you have worked in, and you were never even told, kujeni kwa meza. And for me, this is also a lot of painful and a lot of accountability that I think even you need to ask from donors. When they know clearly, Mundia, you're the one on Njoki or Jacinta organizing end femicide in Kenya, but not coming to support you, but going to big institution, it affects organizing. So how do we do donor accountability, Njoki?
I mean,
Jacinta, Mundia. Also, we are accountable to our community.
To me breathe in,
How do we do donor accountability? Or funders accountability?
Let me tell you, that is a question. And I think no wonder unaona na move kwa state yangu because it is a question I have struggled with for the last 3 years. And I think anyone in the space knows what our struggle has been. especially as women. The whole point about appropriation is really the question of power. Rachel, you have a very strong narrative, you have a very strong cause, but it doesn't suit our interest. It attracts it has mass subscribers, and people mass believers, but we want to take it, work with what our structures are to actually make it work for us. Because the way it is, raw and cut your way, does not work for us. I will give you a very good example. We are in a space where people will talk about women empowerment. We are all feminists. We are about,
human rights.
Yes, human rights.
Movement building.
Bringing down patriarchy. We are crushing patriarchy. We are bashing patriarchy. When we as women came out to say that, these resources that you're bringing to the movement, ndo the cause why tunakuwa abused. There's a lot of sexual violation. There's a lot of exclusion. You'd have a GBV project that is supposed to make these spaces safe for women, but it is the men who are controlling the resources and telling the women to sleep with them to get opportunities. We are not sitting on the table to make decisions about a project that is supposed to come and benefit us. So we raised hell and we said, no, this space is patriarchal. The structures here are patriarchal, that not even you can bring hundreds of millions, and beautiful proposals and concepts about women empowerment, about the liberation of women. But for as long as these structures remain patriarchal, it will never work, So we spoke about sexual violation. We spoke about exclusion. We spoke about, all these men having the power to control the resources, so calling all the shots. And it's been crazy. All the big boys club came out to protect their own. We were getting calls. This is not a cause that you can win, And you will sit in tables with these people and they will tell you, so Njoki, what is the problem? They will pretend to actually care so that they know how to deal with you.
That's true.
Because this even when we call it, the human rights space, is also very, very patriarchal. The women do not control any power whatsoever. It's the big boys club. And when we talk about patriarchy, we also need to remember patriarchy is a system. So we have these enablers who are women, who are very patriarchal, or also sit in the big boys club. So they're like, hey, this one is bringing a lot of problem. We've been tagged problematic. We actually have that tag. It's like, yes, Njoki is a good one, very powerful, but very problematic. You cannot manage that. So what happens? You're blacklisted. So the last 3 years has been a conversation of how then do we hold these donors accountable? Because we understand now they're not for us. For them, it's programs. Tick, we did this. No. Women are having problems. We can throw money at that. We can call them for conferences. We can get them to a place where they will fight and feel like they're vented, and then we can move on. So when you're talking about appropriation, and it's always about the question of power.
This is true.
Thank you. But also I want to hear donor accountability. Because as we are told, you need to be accountable. We are accountable to communities. We are accountable to even our own members and staff. After listening, both Mundi and Jacinta, how do you hold donor accountable?
Hold donor accountable, one ni hiyo do yenye inakam inakuja kubadilisha ama kuharibu zaidi. Juu kukona do inakujanga inaharibu everything you have worked for. Inaharibu aje completely in terms ya tuseme kwa mfano kama hiyo story ya femicide. Umenirudisha mbali juu yenye nakuanga na madhongo na hiyo story. Kama hiyo ya femicide, as we did it with zero budget. Nobody came, only activists from grassroots and our allies. They are the only. But when money came, we saw people even having wanavaa nguo za white, maua ya pink. we were like guy, kwani tulikuwa tunaenda basho wapi? Because sisi tuliona yeah, seriously, because sisi tukienda we had zero budget. So what you do, unavaa t-shirt yako yenye uko nayo, unafunga ribbon ya red, full stop. But ikakuja, ikatoka hapo, ikachukuliwa na organizations ziko na do, watu wakakuwa na vangu ya white nani. Mimi nilifeel already hiyo story imeisha. Because we were fighting for our life, imekuwa lost. Hatukuwa tuna negotiate anything. Ni ile kurezio sauti because kulikuwa ni mingi zimefanyika na zimenyamaziwa. But hiyo tukamua, hata kama itatuweka kwa ngori, wacha tuifa. So for me nilifeel hiyo it was done like ni bash ya kufunga mwaka ya watu walienda kufunga. Na from there hiyo story ilidedi hapo. Na women still wakaendelea kuuliwa na kuuliwa. Nobody came out. For me na feel, unaona do kama hiyo, already lizima ile story. Hiyo do ilikuja ilizima story ya femicide na hivyo. Na watu wakai-normalize. This first tulijaribu kupush ile narrative. It's you are being the intentional killing of women, but because you don't have the funding, haikubebwa. But sisi tulibelieve, si tulienda na yenye tulibelieve na mpaka waleo si uenda na yenye. Unaona kama hiyo, huyo donor anafaa hold accountable. He never did the work which was supposed to be done. Aya, donors wengine, especially when it comes to proposal writing, hapo nakuaga na ngori, na kasirikaga ikifika hapo, wewe unajua what works for your context. But unapata yeye anakuambia what works for their context. Inakujanga ina backlash. Because huku mtaani si tunajua nini natusumbua. We can do better with ABCD. But inakuwa hii pesa si hii, tunaweza fanyia hii. Hawezi peleka the radical way, tuipeleke the softer way. Unapata tuna move from our vision to the donor's vision. Automatically utalose your constituents. Because watafeel, hey, pesa imekuja kwani mmeenda story ya maji. Na tulikuwa tunaongelea story ya wanawake kuuliwa. So unapatikana katikati. Community inakuacha. Na hiyo ndio constituency yako. Next utadeal na nani? Nobody will come to the rescue.
Sasa nina time inatupeleka mbio Mtia.
Me I think nasikia tukiongea I am thinking I think I have 3 tactics. Ya kwanza ni mwenye nguvu mpishe. Kuna mali na unaitiwa pesa unaangalia, you're like, these people are not about changing anything. So ukichukue ukijuanga hivyo, they are not about any change, they're moving money. Hiyo ingine ni manufacturing of consent. Kumaanisha Rachel akikuja kwa hii shughuli ameraba stamp hii shughuli yetu, meaning kuna wengi wetu if we don't have discernment tuna raba stamp vitu zenye zinatu haribu sisi wenyewe, zenye zina undo our movements. Hiyo ingine ni jenga pole pole. Like for me, if you're a funder and I'm telling you, kwa hii context tuko hapa, so hatutaki ido, usitupedo ido kwanza, tupedo ya kufanya foundation kwanza. If you're not listening, basi yenyewe you truly do not want to do this work, because most of the transformative work human rights defenders and feminists do is not work that you see results. It's not about impact or outcome or 77% of whatever did. Hiyo kazi ni kazi ya pole. It's slow, painful, but certain. And context will change kulingana na venye power is grappling, whether it's political, whether it's commerce or capitalism, whatever. So unless someone really understands that, so for me, I think this year has been, if you're not willing to come on board and jenga pole pole with us, it's fine. If you give me money or give Sawa money or our organization or the social movements that we're part of money, nakupima ile are you just moving money so that then tunakupea reports zako end up? But I truly hope funders can come to a place where the funding feminist movement or human rights movement is not part of the industrial complex of AIDS. Because seriously, the work that we do, and I'll say that again, is painful, slow, but certain. And I think if we worked with that, we will learn to trust, especially grassroots movements. Because our lived realities inform our actions and perhaps how we organize. Yeah.
Asante, najua tunaenda na time, lakini kabla tunaenda na time, tunamake very interesting, yeah? Kidogo ndapatia ka challenge kidogo. Najua mlikuwa mnaimanga kwa ya kanisa kidogo.
ala.
So maybe before niwapatie swali ya kwaya ndo tukifunga. Mundi, I know also you being part of Pussy Power with Swaiba and Usawa, there's so much plans that you're planning ahead in terms of also learning circles. Where do you see Pussy Power in 5 years?
What is the strong...
Not even 5 years, 30 years. Not as we do a 30-year plan. Yes, 30-year plan.
I mean, to use the words that we're using is that we will have diluted, co-opted the anti-rights movement, meaning that power will be in the right hands. You know, it's power to give life, power to, you know, to allow for the thriving of everyone, that is not exclusionary. And I say that because I know for sure, for the hallmarks of independence, even whether it was the fight against colonialism, I mean, it's because the people who are in the struggle were clever enough to get it done. So I keep saying we might be beaten small, but I think we're coming, and we're coming well.
Very good.
Yeah.
Madam Finance, in
30
30 years time, where do you see Pussy Power movement?
Mi na feel itakuwa the strongest movement, the legit movement.
Yes.
Kwa nini nasema hivyo? Because Pussy Power movement ina consist na watu wako na passion to see change, to have the safe space to talk about anything and to be who you want to be and to do what you have ever wanted to do. Na ni sisi tuko na ni yetu.
Umesikia hebu today hiyo slogan.
Ni sisi tuko
Feminists,
na
we are
ni
here
yetu.
to stay. Feminists,
Ni sisi tuko.
Jokio, do you see Pussy Power in 30 years time?
You know, the beauty about Pussy Power is how organic it is. Like, it belongs to the people. There's nothing that inspires me even to do the kind of work I do in Githurai. When I walk in Mathare and I find an old mama wearing a Pussy Power, you know,
T-shirts.
or these people from the church,
Yeah.
you know, like mainstream churches, and wearing proudly Pussy Power. So bringing the struggle back to the kind of organic organizing back to the people is where Pussy Power will be in that. I mean, it will not even be there. It will have achieved that. This whole NGOizing nonsense that is going on with social movements, we, with Pussy Power, will have moved back, shifted back the power to the people. Organic,
The fact that also we have children, so in that years, that's why I'm asking you. The kids we have, intergenerational, the kids who are Pussy Power kids now, let's say, maybe the youngest is maybe 3 years or 2. So they'll be 32.
Yes.
So my last question, if you're a feminist funder, if today you become that feminist funder with billions worth of dollars, what would be your priority in terms of resourcing? And how will you do resourcing in 1 minute each? Leo wamke we ni funder. Kuna hizo mado tunalianga, we want this money.
Ni kama tu
priority yako itakuwaje na utapatia naje do?
Inatangwa vision boards. Hii ni vision board, anza.
What is the beauty about, I think, ile kazi tunadu? Ni ati si tu kweli tumegrow ya ghetto. Si tunajua ma realities. We know who's doing the real work. And I think that is what is most important, because at some point this the kind of work that we do was pushed to being very elite and a grassroots wakazimi wa mata. So mimi ndarudi grao.
Strategy yako ni kurudi grao. Utapatia naje do? Na utaprioritize nini kwa issue ni mob za feminist? Utaprioritize nini?
Mimi ukweli sahi passion yangu iko kwa young mothers. Because najua hiyo struggle ni gani. So uko ndio naweza eka uzito kabisa. And not just young mothers from, you know, this kind of age point of view where tunaenda kuokoa maisha ya, you know, but from a very political point of view, because I really believe in the power of women and if they were to take up political spaces. So that is where I would put the focus.
So you'll put money from young mothers. I hope tupatie in 30 years in Pussy Power because tuko na young mothers. And then utapatie na pesa kwa political spaces za women.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Jacinta, priority yako itakuwaje na utapatia na pesa?
Nikiwafanda leo. Mimi maleze kado ni sexual reproductive health rights.
Kwa nini?
Kwa sababu manze wanawake from informal settlement wanakufa na ugonjwa hata wajui ni gani. In terms ya unaona hizi kama cervical cancer, unajipata sijui uko na ovarian cyst, hizo ni vitu tunaona kwa movie. Unless you are privileged, unless uko na do ya kupeana, ndio utajua wewe ni msiku wapi. Si uassume. ukianza nilikalia ile choo ya ile hoteli niko na maybe STI na maybe si hiyo, maybe ni more than that. So mimi naweza fund hapo. Design ya kufund. 1, mimi naweza kuwa najileta. Sitaki nitume wasewa niambiage. Juu hii kutuma watu, kila mtu ako na interest na mtu wake. Ni ile tu unakaa, uambii watu unakuja. Ile design unakaa unaona what people do, because 1 utapewa hizo groups. Kuko na watu wakati wataangalia which groups, but wewe mwenyewe unajipeleka. 2, I will not look for systems and structure because there are groups zinafanya job na hazina hizo vitu. Tutakuja tu an agreement hata kama watahostiwa despite hosting iko na mashida zake mob, lakini kama wamekuwa kifanya na wakiweka tule tu receipt tu wao, kwa nini tusiwa trust na pesa kidogo tukiwapatia capacity, tukiwapea capacity, tukiwadevelopia capacity as we go.
Okay, asante.
Mimi recho yangu ni kama unajua tu itakuwa economical hub because venye nimefanya kazi kwa peace and security, nimefanya kazi tena Delta, kuna kitu yani I think when a human being is deprived economically they become very vulnerable to many things. So na iwe young girls, nimetoka Ghana juzi and kuna sticky notes ziliandikwa na kuna sticky note moja nilieka kwa LinkedIn. Mtu yule niulizaje, ni sawa tumemsomesha rights and the Ghanaian legal framework is better than Kenyan in terms of femicide or child's what is it called, child protection, yeah. But babake akipelekwa jela nani atamsomesha? And it goes back to, so we are aware of our rights, but because our economical power is held either by governments or male relatives in the guise of protection, it doesn't matter how much we know, we kinda almost give up. And even for my female friends who are older than I am or old in my age, most of the times unaonanga mtu alitereza sababu they needed something which had an economical tag to it. So for me, I think, and I know I'm biased because I'm Kikuyu and we love money. But
love money.
You know,
we need to feminize money.
You know, but it's also that I do know, even from our grandmothers, we have a secret sachet of pocket money here, which is called kafagwe. Meaning, I would rather die. It means that's exactly what it means. Meaning that for me, I have grown to understand that economical agency is not everything. But I think when women and girls have that, it's easy for them to make choices. And that's the only place sometimes our bougie feminists beat us up, because they have choices, you know, even for political mobility. It's not because they are politically aware than we are. It is because they can easily move things to their friends and therefore, wao wenyewe ni wanasaidika, right? So because we know what we want and we understand our context, I think putting money in the right hands, however little or more, continuously, inasema cash flow, inasema ile ya kupea, none of those ones, like continuously creating a commerce, na semi-capitalism, I keep using the word commerce, which is business, which is not exploitative, meaning that if we can do that, we can help women, girls, and our communities build the realities that we actually want. So for me,
so
yes.
creating our own wealth.
Yes.
Sexual reproductive health and rights.
Yes.
Ndio kimesema teenage mothers, you know, about
political
and political spaces.
Yeah.
So if you're my friend and you're a funder or a philanthropy, you have had, and also if you're within my circle or circle of my friends and my friends, the way we say it in Kenya, ukijua uko hapa ujue unajua mtu. Sasa wenye najua watu na kuna pesa, umesikia. Fanya pesa ikuwe available, na ikuwe ni trust based na core based, to build your wealth. So me have a surprise as we close. Tusema hakuna revolution bila music ama bila ngoma.
Let us hear where this is going.
Nikiwa nimeenda mayolo kidogo hii mwaka around creating songs based on SDGs in the spirit of leave no one behind.
Okay.
Ni ngoma gani ukisikia tu hivi unasema hii ina visibilize feminist struggle na unaipenda?
I'm gonna stand up, take my people with me. Yes.
Yes.
That's why.
Yes.
Hiyo ndio.
Harriet Tubman.
Hiyo pati yako.
I'm gonna stand up, take my people with me. Together we are moving. moving. Ama ni going.
We are forming a Pussy Power choir.
Yes.
Thank you Njoki.
Mimi
Jakin.
mimi yangu ni greatest love for all
Hiyo
ya
nadhani-
Whitney Houston.
Hebu tuambie ni pati gani unapenda hiyo greatest love for?
I love the whole music.
Mm.
Yeah.
Message gani?
Nyambura anaweza weka message ni bamba ni anakwanga akijimbia venye alitake the stage wakati watu wa kumpea hiyo stage. Yeye mwenyewe alijitengenezea stage.
Hapo sasa. Mimi nadhani mtaimba wimbo local bana.
Local bado tutafika tu.
Sini wase global. You know.
Hii ni global.
You song it's very romantic, but it's not that. Nikako ka phrase I am every woman. Na by Whitney Houston. For me guys, I think that I really love that. Alafu ingine ni Tina Turner. Proud Mary keep on rolling. I think it's it's she's a worker, get stuff done. You know, Proud Mary keep on rolling.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think we can't relate to them, but I think most of our ethnic songs zugu za roho ni venye
True story.
hazikujangi wakati umetuliza.
Zitakuja. So mimi ni Superwoman Tanzanian. All stars. That represents hiyo diversity, inclusion, na pia local. Sisi ni grassroots. Lakini tunazifunza mother tongue. So me I want to thank you, my panelists. You've been amazing. Super. Thank you Njoki from Githurai Social Justice Center. Thank you Jacinta from CGHRD. Thank you Mundia. Nakwambia gender experts and development. Usawa and Swaiba. And thank you for always hosting us.
Yes.
And thank you for always pushing the conversation. As the theme inasema, Feminists, we are here to stay. Feminists,
ni Sisi Tuko, aluta continua.
Pussy Power 2023.
Three.
Yay.
Mimi nishasema.